All right, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. So we're going to be kind of talking about three main steps here. This is where the big buckets break down. How do we get people to our site? That's step one. Once they get to our site, how do we engage them, get them to deepen that relationship? And then the third one is how do we get them to convert, become a client, request a quote, taking that next step. So first thing to do is get traffic, because without traffic, there's not much else to do. So how do we do it? There's a few different kind of categories within this. So direct traffic, a lot of times it's people that already know your brand. They see maybe your website printed somewhere. Could be through traditional marketing, could be through a radio advertisement where they hear your domain. Social, pretty obvious there, your Facebook, Twitter, any of those social mediums that can get to there. Referrals from other websites, other stuff out there that isn't classified under social. And then search traffic, your Google, Bing, Yahoo. Really comes down to Google, because Google owns about 90% of the search market, so they're by far the dominant force in that. And we're going to focus primarily on search today. So search engine optimization, because this really relates directly to your website and how it's built, how your content's structured, how you're pulling people in. So the first thing we want to do is figure out what are people actually searching for. What are they searching for that could relate to your business, that could bring somebody in to learn more about you, services you provide. Could just be answering a question from somebody. But what are they searching for? Then can we rank for that keyword? Because keywords are all created different. Some have a much more difficult time being able to rank for. Sometimes there's one that may not get as much traffic, but it's far easier to rank for. I'd much rather go after something like that than trying to go after the tough competition. And then how do we create content and format it for that? So let's break this down. So what are people searching for? And my favorite tool to use for this is Google itself. Go straight to Google, and Google Suggest. So Google Suggest is something we've all probably used without realizing it. It's when you start typing something in, and it starts auto-completing for you. Now, the only reason that Google would do that is because they know people are specifically searching for that. So people are searching for that. Because if we try and optimize for a keyword phrase that nobody's searching for, it really doesn't matter. Nobody's searching for it, you're never going to get anybody to your website. So using Google search, and you could start out by just putting in Glenwood, Minnesota, and then see what it's completing. You can put in your products, see what it completes. Start brainstorming here. You're kind of wanting to be very open-minded at this point, and I literally brainstorm and write down everything that I can pull out at this point. We're trying to generate a big list here, anywhere from 50 to a couple hundred keywords, because we're going to thin this down a little bit later. So another good one is Google-related searches. So if I find a keyword phrase, maybe it's Alexandria, MN, tourism, could be Glenwood, Minnesota, coffee shop. When I go to that search, at the bottom of the search, what Google will show at the bottom of that search is related keywords to that one. So they'll be very close to that one, but they'll be slightly different. Now those, again, Google only shows because they know people are searching for those particular ones. And those are really good ones because that can help you with what they call the halo effect. Because what you want to be doing is trying to find keywords that are related. You want to be writing about keywords that are related to each other because it builds up your reputation in Google's mind that you're an expert on these topics. So if you're somebody who deals if you're a coffee shop and all of a sudden you start writing about something completely different, some other business, it wouldn't really make sense in Google's eyes that you would do well as an authority on that topic. You want to stick within your industry, what you know, what your expertise is, which makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, we're wanting to be sincere and candid about what topics we're experts on. And then Google Keyword Planner is another tool that's free. It's really a tool meant for Google Ads, but it actually works really well for generating keyword ideas. And you can get some data from Google directly as far as how many people a month are searching for keywords. I would ignore the competition though in there, because competition in there is strictly for Google Ads itself. So unless you're doing advertising, that competition is not what we call relevant to what we call organic searches, where people are just searching and you just show up in Google search results. So you can ignore that part of it. And one thing that's also kind of an interesting anecdote is when they show you on there how many monthly searches, so if you punched in like Glenwood, Minnesota tourism, it may say 1,000 people a month are searching that. From the research that we've seen and reviewed from a lot of different sources, those numbers are usually far higher than that. For some reason, Google tends to way underestimate, so don't be discouraged if you see there's like 50 people searching for it. A lot of times that can mean 400 or 500 people searching for it, if not more. But the good news is you want to find those people that at least you've confirmed people are searching for that out there. The other thing too is to also keep in mind a lot of the searches that are popping up every day are going to be new searches. So this isn't something that's static. You know, what we're searching for in 5 years is not going to be the same as today. So it's something you can come back and revisit, you know, do some more brainstorming on. So we've got our list. So the next thing we need to do is thin that list down. Try and find, you know, the low-hanging fruit. Where are we going to find that path of least resistance? So the first thing you want to do is figure out what your domain authority is for your website. Now there's a tool out there, Moz. They really built a reputation from back in the beginning. They started actually reading through all of Google's patents and kind of reverse engineering a lot of what Google did. They run a lot of experiments on it. Great resource for reading more about search engine optimization. And they have a tool on there that you can check your domain authority for your website. And they'll let you run, I think it's like 10 free checks a month with their tool if you sign up for a free account. So it'll give you a number between 0 and 100. And it's really an intrinsic score, meaning that it's only their own score as far as how they see your website from Google's perspective. So they'll give you a score from 0 to 100. Now, most likely you're gonna probably be somewhere in the 10 to 40 range. It gets much, much tougher the higher up you go. It's a non-linear scale, meaning it's much harder to go from 30 to 40 than it is from 10 to 20. Most small businesses, you're seeing around the 20 to 30 range. Some of the highest ones I've seen in the area are like Tastefully Simple, like you'll see like newspaper publications, but even then, I think Tastefully Simple is the highest one I've seen in the area, and they're at like 60. So it's a very hard scale to climb. So don't be discouraged if you go in there and you see like, hey, my domain authority is only 25. There's still a lot of room to work with that, especially because a lot of what we're trying to do is go after local traffic here where there's less competition. So we write down that number and let's say it's 30. Then what we can do is Moz has another tool on there that you can check keyword phrases on, and it'll give you another score from 0 to 100, and that's the keyword difficulty. And that'll tell you how difficult it is to rank for it. And you can literally take that authority score and compare it directly to the keyword score to see if you have a chance to rank for it the way your website is right now. So if you have an authority of 30 and you get you get this keyword list and you go through and you get all the keyword difficulties for each of those phrases, you want to kind of eliminate any of them that I would say are probably over 40, because it's going to be a long time before you reach 40. So you want to focus on those ones, for sure the ones that are in the teens and the 20s, because you're already in a position to rank for that. Because Google already views you as an authority to some degree for those topics. Whereas some of these other ones, it's not just a matter of like the level of competition. Because if it's like maybe a gardening topic and Bob's Garden Blog is ranking for this, you have a chance to outrank him. But if it's HGTV, it's going to be a really hard climb. So you don't want to go against the big boys, because they'll have 80, 90 for a domain authority. So if they're writing on the exact same topics as you, you want to try and find stuff that they're not focusing on. So we figured out now, we vetted this down, maybe we had a list of 100 keywords, and we've got it down to 30 keywords that we really want to focus on. So what we want to now do is create one piece of content per keyword phrase, because it keeps it very focused. It's also very easy in Google's mind then to understand, because if you're trying to have one piece of content that's trying to serve 10 different keywords, it can be very confusing for Google as far as which keyword phrase you're trying to optimize for. And there's a few different ways you can do this. If you're, for example, if you use WordPress, there's the Yoast tool that allows you to punch in a keyword phrase and gives you helpful feedback on how to optimize for it. But the one thing that I would caution you against here is don't focus entirely on optimization. The most important thing at the end of the day is to create the best piece of content for that keyword phrase. And the reason I say that is Google, at the end of the day, is trying to connect their users, the people that are searching, to the best piece of content for what they're searching for out there. So if you create the best piece of content for a particular keyword phrase, you're going to have a much, much better chance of ranking for it, and you're going to have Google on your side. Google famously employs over 2,000 PhD mathematicians that work on their algorithm. I would much rather have them on my side than trying to work against me by trying to game their system. So just keep that in mind. At the end of the day, we're trying to create the best piece of content out there for the keyword phrase. We're trying to answer people's questions. We're trying to be helpful. It's going to help you a lot as far as how you rank. So we've created this content, we've got a lot of useful information in there. The next thing is you want to make sure you're also engaging the client when they're coming in there. You want to make sure that when they click to your content, it doesn't just look like a giant glossary of text, because it's not very exciting for anybody. You want to have photos in there, maybe pull out some highlighted quotes, maybe drop some videos in there, some stats and charts. There's a lot of different ways to break it up. You should really never have a section where all you see what they call the viewport, what you see on your screen, where it's all text. You really want to try and break it up with some media. And where this is really important, not just because you want to engage the potential customer, but where it's also important is Google tracks everything that we do. They track about 75% of all the traffic online through Chrome, analytics, their own search engine. They have a ton of avenues to track data. And one thing that they do is when you search for a particular keyword phrase and you go to those search results, if you click on that first result, you go there and you come back within 10 seconds, that's not a good sign. They track all that stuff that we do. Whereas if you go there, even if I come back to the search results, if I'm over there for 4 or 5 minutes reading that article, they're like, there must have been something useful there. They got something out of it. So you want to keep them engaged. So formatting is very important, not just for engaging those visitors and those readers, but also for how the article itself ranks. So this is one of my favorite tools. So we talked about some keyword ideas as far as how to get brainstorming, especially if this is the first time starting off. If you already have a website out there, I would highly recommend, if you haven't already, hook up your tool to Google Search Console. It's a free tool by Google, and it is one of the few times you're going to get direct feedback from Google itself. Google is notoriously a black box. Like, they don't let much information out about the algorithm, how things work. They'll confirm little pieces every once in a while, but Google Search Console, when you hook it up to your website, it'll actually tell you what keywords you're ranking for, where you're getting traffic for certain keywords. And where this can be really helpful is you can filter it down. And what I've done for this is one of our client sites, is I filtered it down to just average position, meaning like where they show up in those search results, to 10 or higher. And the reason that I did that is because if it's something they're already ranking 1 or 2 or 3 or 5, they're probably already getting a decent amount of traffic from it. They're already doing well. What I want to look for is the stuff that they're close to ranking for, and they just need that little extra boost. So maybe they're ranking on the second page of Google, so they're really close, so it wouldn't take much to go back and see which article that they're ranking for, maybe add in some new content for it, maybe add some better photos, more engaging content, see what the competition's doing that's ranking higher. But I absolutely love this because they always say if you want to hide a dead body, put it on the second page of Google, because nobody goes to the second page of Google. So as close as you are there, it's probably getting almost no traffic. But once you get onto that first page, you can start seeing a lot more traffic come in. And this is one little trick that you can do to actually see which page on your site is ranking for that particular keyword phrase. You just put in there site, your URL for your website, and then the keyword phrase, and it'll show you which one in Google's mind is ranking the top for that. So you know which article to go optimize, which page. One thing I should quickly mention too is I can send out the notes for all this after. I can send out the presentation for this. So if you do want to get that and you don't want to write down the notes for all this and just kind of listen, you can drop in a business card at the front here. We have some slips to fill out, and I'll email that out here in a couple days. I also did a presentation a few weeks ago in Alexandria that was all on search engine optimization. So I can send out the notes for that too, and you can watch the whole presentation online for free if you want to. So we are starting to attract traffic. We're starting to get more people to the website. How do we engage them? This is the one thing that I always try and encourage people to think about when they're putting together their marketing plan for the website is how do you get to the path to 8 engagements? And the reason that I highlight this number is this is what they found as far as subconsciously, after you've had about 8 interactions with the business, is when you start to subconsciously trust that business. So what you want to try and do is figure out how can I get to 8 interactions with that person. It's not just your website, it could be traditional media, it could be your social media. There's a lot of different ways to get to 8 interactions, but you have to remember, while we love our business, our organization, what we do, this may be the first interaction somebody's ever had to our service, our business, so we're trying to get them to the point where they subconsciously trust us and we've built up that relationship with us. So it could be a couple different ways. We talked about social media, traditional marketing. Could just be a matter of getting people to blog posts to try and provide helpful answers. Don't have to necessarily always be selling. I like to always say 90-10 rule is good. 90% useful information, good solutions, and 10% selling. So if you lead with just being helpful, a good, trustful resource, the sales will come. And the one we're going to focus on here is the newsletter, because I think that's one that's a little bit more of an underutilized feature of being able to engage with potential client base. And one thing I do like about newsletters is they're not affected by algorithms the same way like Facebook is. You can have 1,000 followers on Facebook, but your reach may be half of what it used to be 5 years ago, and it's seeming like every year it gets lower and lower because of how crowded it's becoming. Email, you control that list. If you don't like the platform you're on, if you're on MailChimp and you want to switch to Constant Contact, you can take your list and you can move. You can't do that with the social media platform. So I like newsletters and the fact that you do have a little bit more control, and it still is pretty effective as far as reaching that audience. But you need to, when you're getting somebody to sign up for it, provide a clear value. Don't just say sign up for our newsletter. Tell them what they're going to get out of it. Are they going to get some unique insight? Could it be a coupon code? What is it that they're going to get out of it? Also tell them the frequency, because one of the biggest hesitations for people signing up is this going to be a daily one? Is this going to be weekly, monthly? What is it going to be? So if you just tell them straight up, hey, here's what our plan is as far as frequency, you can kind of set their mind at ease as far as not being cluttered up in their inbox. And then social proof. If you've been running a newsletter for a while, and you already have a following, say, hey, we already have 1,000 people, join 1,000 other people that are already getting our monthly newsletter on marketing tips. And here's a good example from a marketing agency out in Chicago. Really quick, they show social proof with how many people that receive it, how often, biweekly, and what you're getting out of it, web marketing tips. So you can really quickly see in one sentence exactly what you're getting out of this newsletter. Now, that being said, it does help to add a few different techniques to get people to sign up. One of my favorites, what's called a button modal, and that's where somebody clicks on a button and then you get a quick pop-up there that they fill out their email to join the newsletter. Now what's interesting about that is called the Zeigarnik effect, where if somebody starts a process, the odds of them completing it is far greater, meaning if they click that button, even though they probably subconsciously know they're going to be punching in their email, to put that in, if they don't see that email box there, and they click the button to start, the odds of them putting their email in are far higher. And I've tracked the analytics for a lot of the sites that we work on this, and the odds of somebody completing that is really high. We've seen it about 30% of the people that click the button. So as long as you have a really appealing button, it could be like, hey, get a 10% discount coupon code or something like that, and we'll email it to you immediately. The odds of them falling through with that are much higher. Contact form opt-in. If somebody's going to take the time to send you a message and they're already that engaged with you, add a little checkbox right along with your contact form that lets them opt into your newsletter right there. It's super easy. They've already put in their email. All you have to do is check a box. That's worked really well in our experience. Pop-ups are kind of a sore subject for a lot of people on this third one, but the thing is, they work. Now, one way to make them less intrusive, though, because I hate the ones that you go to a website for the first time and they pop up immediately. I mean, I haven't even read the article. I don't know how useful it is. I barely even met the company, and all of a sudden they're harassing me about joining their newsletter immediately. My favorite way to do it is what they call an exit intent pop-up. You can track a mouse on a website where you can see when the mouse is leaving the screen to leave the website, and that's when the pop-up happens. It's sort of a last-ditch effort to say, hey, let's be friends. So. And it works well. It can be very effective, and it's way less intrusive, because the last thing you want to do too is have a pop-up right before somebody's going to buy a product or reach out to you anyways. This is somebody who's about to leave. Give them some reason to stay connected with you. And then also content upgrades. This could be if you blog a lot, maybe you have a big cheat sheet as far as, I did one article a while back for a home maintenance blog, and I did a fall home maintenance basically to run down in the article, and I put a big PDF that went along with it that's like, hey, here's your cheat sheet for everything you need to do for fall maintenance. So join our newsletter right now and we'll send this to you immediately. That works really well because you can focus on the articles that you have seen get the most traction. I wouldn't do it for every article, but what I would do is if you write a lot of articles, a lot of blog posts, see which ones get the most traffic. Usually like 5% of your articles account for about 70–80% of all your traffic. So if you can just focus on those top articles that are getting the most traffic, try to get those content upgrades hooked up to those ones. So don't leave the visitor hanging. This is something I see a lot. Because if somebody's going to take the time to contact you, sign up for your newsletter, they're already showing at certain level of engagement to the next level. Don't just say, hey, thanks for signing up for our newsletter. Give them another way to connect with you. So this is what happens if you sign up for our, this is our contact form from ours. So you'd be amazed at how many people have gone and watched this. It's not just connect with us on Facebook. We give them something kind of funny to see about our team. We literally set up an office Olympics a couple years back when the Summer Olympics was going on, and we raced chairs through our office around cones. It's a hilarious video. But that's way more appealing than just say, hey, connect on Facebook. Come watch this super funny video, get to know our team a little bit better. Trying to humanize it a little bit. Remember, we're trying to connect with people on the other end, not computers. So try and make it engaging. So we've got the traffic. We're starting to engage them, starting to deepen that relationship. How do they get them on the path to becoming a client or customer? It's very important to have a very clear description of who you are. I would say be clear, not clever. And you see this a lot of times with websites. If you can't figure out what it is, within a few seconds what they do and all that, you're losing that with clarity. You'd be amazed at how much just providing more clarity and answering any questions or doubts people have can help for converting people into customers. And I always like to say humanize the site. Sometimes I feel like, and there's kind of a trend 10 years ago where every website, even if it was just a single person shop, looked super corporate. It was meant to look like a much bigger company or whatever. You can see this for personalization is a huge trend within the business world right now. So try to add photos of your team on there, add personal touches of yourself. We try to add at least one picture of one of our team members on each of the pages of our own website because it feels a lot more relatable, more humanized, not so distant. And then social proof. And so that could be testimonials, how many customers you have, how many years you've been in business, could be certifications you have, any number of things. It's almost impossible to have too much social proof. And Amazon would actually be a really good example of that. If you go to any Amazon site, if you look at it, if you just compare pixels as far as the height, about 50 to 60% of any Amazon page will be social proof. Whether it be reviews, other people that bought certain things, could be questions that people have answered. It's a lot of social engagement on there, and it helps. We all love to look at reviews before we buy products and all that. Social proof can help a lot to establish yourself as whether authority on your topic. Could be a matter of creating that herd mentality where a lot of other people have done the same thing, so that there's some level of trust from that group there. So social proof, lots of it, is never too much. And then keep the user focused. Don't get too distracted. Try and keep in mind what that user path, what that user journey will look like. And I've noticed every time we've redesigned our own website, every time it becomes less and less as far as what's on there. I think we're at a point now where we only have 3 or 4 things, 4 items I think in our, and that's confirmative, 4 items in our main menu. It used to be 6 or something like that. Less is more for sure. And there's a number of reasons I like to do this. So one thing, and this is shaking a little bit of rust off as far as the way that we do things. It's good to do stuff the way other people have done it as far as layouts and things like that, a certain level of familiarity with it. But there's certain things that we've seen done for a lot of years that I think need to be reevaluated. One is social media icons. We actually removed them from our header because what we found from not just our own site but from client sites is when people click on that Facebook icon to go to your page, they get lost down the void of Facebook. They never come back. Because Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever it is always going to be far more engaging than we'll ever be. It's just not a fair competition. So why send them there when the odds of them coming back to your site are going to be really low. In fact, the only way that I would do it, and we do it on our own site, is after they've already contacted us, then we put it on that confirmation page, hey, now connect with us on Facebook, because we've already established that relationship, already made contact with them. You can put it in your footer, if somebody is looking for a link to your Facebook page or your Twitter page. Doesn't mean you have to make it difficult for them to be able to find it. So you can still include it in the footer, just don't lead with it. Another suggestion along those lines is if you do embed YouTube videos, which I think is a good idea, there is ability to turn off related videos for that. Because otherwise they're going to start going down this rabbit hole of videos. So they may start off with looking at your video on banking, and before you know it, they're looking at cat videos. They completely forgot what they're doing. And then try and keep options really trimmed down. People are actually really bad about making decisions, especially if it's a decision they haven't made before. So whether it be even the navigation menu, try and keep options to 5 or less. If it's a matter of picking a product, say option A or B, make it really easy and clear, and try not to put on there like 40 different options. Because that's the difference between empowering a visitor and decision fatigue. We've all been to those sites where there's like 50 different things on there. And we're like, oh, it's such a clutter, and it feels like homework to have to go through there and become a customer. I'm just going to leave and I'm going to go find a different option that's going to be much more helpful, much more clear about the value that's being provided. So when they do go to buy that product online, request that quote, try and provide a very clear value of what that call to action is, that CTA. And speak to benefits, don't speak to features. So if I went up to somebody and said, hey, we should really add schema markup or to your website, they'll be like, I have no idea what you just said to me. And I would say, we should add a little bit of code to your website that makes it much easier for Google to pick up your recipes in their recipe finder. You'll get much more traffic from it, people will be able to see it. That's a benefit. They're like, oh, I get that, no more traffic, that makes sense to me. Whereas if I'm speaking to the feature, that really only means something to myself a lot of times. So speak to the benefit that that customer or client is going to be receiving from your product or service. And then one thing that we've found that works really well too is if you have a form that they have to fill out, it helps if you have an adaptive form. And what I mean by that is a lot of times we lead with starting like, how can we help you? And then they'll pick, hey, I just have a general question, so it's just a simple name, email, message. But if they want a quote request, our form will actually change to include a spot for their URL, maybe their budget. So that way there's not 20 different form fields on there, and they have to sift through to figure out which ones they should fill out. The form will adapt based on their previous responses, so it's much less scary. It's only the bare minimum number of fields that they have to fill out, and it's more personalized to what they're trying to accomplish. So we put all this effort into it. We want to make sure it's paying off, so we want to track it. Now, if you use Google Analytics, goals are built in there, so you can put goals in there. So whether it be people filling out a quote request form, buying a product, you can track conversions in Google Analytics. So you can see not only like how many people are converting to become a customer or client, you can also see, hey, are they, most of them coming from Facebook? So I should double down on my Facebook marketing, or most of them coming from these Google ads. So if you know who's converting, not just where the traffic is, because honestly, traffic can sometimes be a little bit of a vanity number, because if I'm getting 100,000 hits a month on my site, but I'm getting almost nobody to buy, I would much rather have 1,000 hits than I'm getting 50 people to buy. So that's where traffic can be a little bit of a vanity number. You want to have the best traffic for you. So this can help a lot with that. And a few things along those lines to help goal tracking be a little bit better. Try to remove things like PDFs. PDFs are kind of the rust of the internet, to be honest, where they're not good for search engines, they're not good for mobile friendliness, they're really hard to track for analytics. There's a lot of things that are very tough about PDFs. Now there's some times where you want to have them on there. Maybe it's just a matter of somebody needs to download something, but that's not a marketing piece of content. And then also consider removing email links, because when people click on email links or if they copy it, it's hard to track that versus a form. Forms are just as easy to use, but if they're using that form, you can track that and see exactly what information they're filling out. Whereas an email link, you can't track who's copying and pasting that and putting it in their email provider. And then also, when you look at Google Analytics, you can see where people are dropping. They have an exit percentage based on pages. So if you see, hey, a huge number of people are dropping out at this certain point on their way to buy a product or request a quote, put a little more attention towards that one page. Is there something on there that may be confusing, maybe a particular question? Could you put an exit intent module on that specific one? How many people have gone to an e-commerce site where it looks like you're about to leave and all of a sudden you see a pop-up to receive 10% off? You know, they do that very strategically because they realize a lot of people drop off right as they're about to hit checkout. A lot of people get cold feet right at the last second, so they'll give you a little extra incentive to just push you over the edge. So when you're putting together your plan for this, just kind of keep in mind those 3 buckets and try and figure out how you're going to attract traffic to your site, how you're going to deepen that relationship by engaging them more, and then how are you going to provide a clear value and a very simple way to convert to become a customer. I'd love to answer any questions you guys may have right now. Again, my name's Tyler Goldberg. I'm with CYBERsprout. We're right up the road here in Alexandria. Feel free to shoot me an email if you're not one of the brave souls that wants to ask a question in front of anybody else. I'd be happy to answer a question for you. We do have a monthly small business marketing newsletter, so if anybody wants to sign up for that, you're more than welcome. You can also go to cybersprout.net/events, and I will have the downloads for this on there as well. I'll put them up here in a couple days. And then you can also download and view that other presentation I was talking about if you'd like to take a look at that one too. I'd love to answer any questions if anybody has anything. Who's going to be that first one? I know there's always got to be one.
How many people do you have working in your company?
7 of us.
7 of you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we've got Beth here is one of our designers. Brad over here, product manager. Nate back here is one of our website developers. Whitney couldn't be here today. She's a designer as well. Colton, intern. He's just about to leave, and we have Tristan coming in from the tech school. So we've had a few different interns from the tech school. They've been great for us. Great program there. And then Maddie helps with admin stuff around the office.
And your wife?
And my wife. Yeah. And my wife. She does our accounting operations stuff. Thank you, God. Yes.
So do you think our blogs or blog posts, do those improve your SEO? Are they worth the time?
Definitely. Blog posts, I mean, at the end of the day, when I was talking about creating that content, those specific keyword phrases, because every keyword phrase is going to be a little bit different. One may be specific to like a product, since you just want to optimize a product page, but maybe one is just somebody looking for answers on something that's related to your products. So that's where it's good to write just an article and a blog post that can, you can link to those products and things like that. But it gives you a chance to be helpful for that person, because a lot of times you want to try and prove that you can be helpful for them before they can, buy your service.
And so it seems like a lot of the websites I see that have blogs hosted on other websites. Is there a reason for that, or is it mostly because they just don't have enough control over their own website, so they look, they go to a WordPress or something else?
So a bit of the latter, and a bit of like 10 years ago, I'd say, maybe longer, it was very, very common to where like blogging was almost treated like a social media platform. So people would host it on Blogger or something like that, or they'd have a WordPress blog and then their main site was built somewhere else. So we've specialized in WordPress, and there's no reason really to have a detached blog anymore, and it's actually better to have it all under one. For a few different reasons. One, it's usually easier, better user experience for the person that's coming to your site. Another thing is your analytics are tracking across your blog and your main site, so you can relate that to each other. Plus, going back to domain authority, is if you actually have your blog on a separate site, it's usually on a subdomain or a separate domain. That's a different domain authority than your main one. So now you're trying to worry about your domain authority for 2 different sites. So it can create a lot of confusion, and there's really no good reason to have it separate these days. Good questions. And one thing too, speaking of domain authority, to speak a little to that, specifically how that's determined, how Google kind of separated itself from the other search engines back in the late 90s is what they took a look at is they saw that sites only really link to other sites if they find that that information is useful, if they like that other site. So they kind of looked at that as sort of like a voting system. So the more links you get from other sites to your own helps increase your domain authority. There's other things that go into it, but that at the core of it is the most important. Now, social links don't count. They have code in there that basically makes those links sort of invisible to search engines, because that way people aren't just trying to add thousands of links on there just to game the system. And I'm sure a lot of you have gotten those emails from SEO experts that are trying to build links. It's a horrible idea, because what they try and do is try and game the system, and there's this little crack to where they can figure out a way to game Google's system, but that only, and Google's not stupid, they know that that's happening. Their algorithm just hasn't caught up yet, and when it does, you're gonna get punished far more than it's gonna help you. So those, you wanna try and build good, useful links. So one of the best ways, going back to blogging, is most of the links that we've gotten to our own site is because somebody else links to that specific blog post because they found that article useful. So it gives people more targets to link to your site. If you're part of an association, you know, if you're part of the Glenwood Chamber, linking to your site is a very helpful thing, and the Glenwood Chamber has a high domain authority. You know, if you can get articles out there, if you can do a guest post for, you know, a different publication out there to potentially get, you know, a link back from them, you can give them free content. Try and make it really, really good content, something that you'll find high value in. Yep.
Along the same lines, on my blog, on my website, I get a lot of strangers from all over the world that come in and they put in a link to their whatever garbage it is, and of course I just go in and delete it, but I don't know any way to block that, because it's, you know, comments are open for anybody. Is there any?
Are you on WordPress or a different platform?
It's a Zenfolio platform.
So a lot of times they'll have some kind of spam filter in there. I can't speak specifically to that platform. So like, for example, WordPress has a Kismet as one plugin. So that's the best thing, is to try and see if they have some kind of spam filter specifically for your platform. Because you're right, and a lot of people have bots that basically go around and do that for you. You'll see like their comments are like, oh man, this is an amazing blog post. It's like, you're like so insightful and amazing and wonderful, and it just like makes no sense. And it's super generic. And then they're hoping that you approve that comment, and then they try and plug a bunch of links to their own website in there. So you get a lot of that spam out there from people trying to do that, trying to game the system.
Can you talk about metadata? What's that?
Yeah, for SEO?
Yeah.
So it's basically information that's designed specifically for search engines. Now it's evolved a little bit over the years. I mean, at the end of the day, when you do a blog post, the title and the description are the two most important things. I would actually completely ignore the keyword box in there, because essentially Google completely started ignoring that, because people are using that to try and game the system, try and do what I call stuffing and all that, trying to put every keyword in there. And so it's good to have a good description in there for a few reasons. For one, it can help Google understand the content, but also that's the information that shows up in the search results. So when people click on those Google search results, that's what they see for the description and the title. And if you don't set it, Google guesses what it would be. And that's not always the best thing, because a lot of times they'll pull like the first paragraph of your article, which may be really good for your article, but may be bad to give people a really quick overview of what they're going to be getting out of the article itself. Does that make sense?
That makes sense for a blog post, but what about just like a page on your website? Or so it's looking again at the title of that page?
Yep, it'd be the same thing.
Okay.
Yep, it would just be done a little bit differently based on where that page is. And the other thing too is you don't have to worry about optimizing every page either. For example, like a contact page, there's really nothing to optimize for. It's usually somebody searching for your business name and contact or phone number. Now it's still good to put that in there to say, hey, like if you're trying to get a hold of such and such business, feel free to contact us here or something like that, so people know what they're clicking on. But I wouldn't put like a tremendous amount of thought into how I'm gonna optimize my metadata for a contact page.
So there's really no action item for metadata, just making sure that your titles are relevant, and I mean, there's no back end anything that you're doing.
Well, I mean, a lot of times platforms nowadays, they're so attuned to this that they're handling all that back end for you. So for example, if you're using WordPress and you're using the Yoast tool, Yoast is handling all that code for you. You just need to fill in the boxes. So that's one thing that's nice about nowadays. A lot of times this stuff is happening without us even realizing it. For example, with WordPress as well, when you publish a new blog post, it has a ping engine built into it that notifies all the search engines out there that you have a new piece of published content, so they know immediately to start adding it to their search results. So the nice thing is a lot of times that stuff is being handled for you. Or for example, going back to the Google Search Console, you can submit your sitemap from your website directly to there. So they have the entire blueprint to your website right there, so they know where all the content is, how it relates to each other, if there's new content on there, if it's been updated. And Google and other search engines have crawlers out there too. You can see some of the crawlers out there show up in your Google Analytics report. So they have essentially bots that go out there and are constantly checking out sites. A lot of times they'll hit sites like once a day. If it's a more frequent site, they could be hitting it like dozens, if not hundreds of times a day. If it's like say like a big publication or like an ESPN or something like that that's publishing tons of content, they'll have bots that'll be hitting that hundreds of times a day to see all the new content, trying to analyze it real time. Well, Katie, have a
I
question?
just had one.
Yep.
For the social media stuff, you said to drop it unless it was in like the footer. What would you say for like Instagram feeds where people have 12 of their recent Instagram posts? What would you say for that?
Yeah,
Keep it
it's-
or like have it non-linkable? I don't know.
Yeah, and so there's a few different thoughts on that. I think if it makes sense, if you're kind of trying to replace a photo gallery and it's more dynamic, it can be very powerful, and where you're not trying to encourage people to go directly to Instagram. Instagram is probably one of your better ones too, in the fact that if somebody clicks on it from a desktop, they're probably not going to be doing nearly as much on Instagram from their desktop. But there are some hesitations I have with it in the fact that it adds some weight to your page, and page speed does matter for engagement, how you rank, things of that nature. So when you're trying to feed in, 10 different images from Instagram, plus you have to run their JavaScript and CSS styles and things like that, it slows down your page a little bit. A lot of times, I caution against putting it, for example, like in the footer where it's got to load on every single page, or sometimes on like a home page, where it's a lot of times somebody's first entrance into your website, maybe added on like an about page for people to learn more about you.